All right, welcome to Bet the Edge. I'm Jay Croucher here with Drew Dinsick. Today we're going to talk, Drew, about Bills-Patriots, Packers-Broncos, a very strange game, and then the Sunday night game, Dolphins-Eagles, and then close out with our best bets. But let's start in New England. The Bills are 8.5-point favorites over the Patriots. I was a little surprised that this wasn't higher, but I think you like the Patriots, don't you?
Yeah, you want me to make a case here?
Thank you.
Actually, I love these three games that we get to talk about today. I think these are the three of my favorite kind of handicaps to really dig into of the entire week. At least they have the most interesting layers, right? And the Bills-Patriots layer is interesting because the way things have gone since the kind of the epic, you remember that like epic, super cold, super windy game that the Patriots and the Bills played where Bill Belichick was like, yeah, it was like, I'm going to win the game with my quarterback making 3 pass attempts, right? And, Patriots really kind of put on a masterclass of defense in that game. Well, since then, it's been pretty much one-way traffic Bills, including maybe one of the most historic or epic beatdowns I've ever seen in a playoff setting with the Bills basically scoring on every single opportunity they had in that game, maybe even outdoing. They basically hit the 100th percentile in a playoff game. So I get why people kind of look at this as like David and Goliath, like a bit of a mismatch in terms of quality of opponent. And I also get why no one has an appetite to bet the Patriots right now. This is a team that has struggled to find their footing offensively all year. They lost 2 important defensive players. People have continued to downgrade this defense, and the Patriots kind of final hurrah bettors showed up last week and they bet them against the Raiders, and they should have taken their money and gone, they should have taken their tickets to the window and gone home with pockets full of money, in which case there might have been some Patriots support this week. However, the safety at the end of that game flipped that result, and now everybody's like, "Wow, the Patriots are just, atrociously bad. This is the worst team in football." Blah 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 blah. But I have news for you: this is not the worst team in football. This defense is still relatively good. The offense is quite poor, but they have also been a little bit shaded based on the quality of opposition. Going up against the Jets, the Saints, and the Cowboys already this season. Those are 3 elite defenses in your 6 games you played. And I kind of would mostly point to just the fact that I don't think you can entirely divorce how you rate the Patriots right now from their preseason prior, which was relatively favorable. This was a team that was like, league average, better than league average by almost every market, every kind of market maker, an average market rating. And, it was kind of one of those teams where if they had an easier schedule, they probably are a playoff team. If they're in the NFC South, they're probably a playoff team. And the look-ahead market for this particular game was Patriots plus 2.5. So they were considered to be under a field goal at home against the mighty Buffalo Bills preseason. And as I look at like what data and information you've gotten from the Patriots so far this season, none of it's good. I agree with that. But I don't think you can entirely weight the data that you've got in hand and completely ship your preseason priors on these guys. And then the flip side of the coin is, how do you rate this Buffalo Bills defense? Because the meaningful injuries, as far as I can tell you, are really all on that side of the ball. And we're going to kind of put aside the fact that Josh Allen is dealing with a shoulder injury. He was a full participant in practice today. He's probably going to be fine. But I think the fact that the defense here for the Buffalo Bills is coming in, that is, they really only have one look now. They can get pressure with guys like Floyd and Rousseau, maybe if they're healthy. And I think you have an improving health situation going on with the Patriots offensive line. I think in general, the Patriots are a little bit of, they're a little bit of a divisional dog, rivalry kind of whiff to them as far as being competitive in this game. But mostly I can't get to the point where you have degraded the Patriots rating so aggressively relative to their preseason priors, while not also kind of reconciling that the Bills are not as good as what they would be if they were at full strength. If this was a full strength Bills team, like probably like, is 8.5 enough? But it's not full strength, and they're not playing especially well offensively right now. Some of the looks that we were expecting, the wrinkles that they were going to give us in terms of the 2 tight end looks, the rushing attack, a lot of that is sputtering. Some of it is health related. Some of it is it's just doesn't really fit with how they are, how they're rostered. So I think ultimately the Patriots can keep this close. I like plus 8.5. I like a little sprinkle on the Patriots money line because it's just an enormous price. And I think there's a decent chance that, Patriots can turn this into an ugly game in the wind at home, where it's sort of decided by, kind of late game execution and a field goal. Like, we're not far removed from the 32nd ranked team in DVOA, the New York Giants, who had no offensive line, almost beating the Bills. Like, should not be kind of out of the range of possibility or out of, kind of a mental calculus to be able to understand that the Bills are a vulnerable team right now. And while the Patriots have shown you nothing to really make you believe in them this year, I'll give it a shot here with this many points.
I think my concern for the Patriots would be, one, they have 21 players listed on the injury report, which is insane. And look, most of these guys, to be fair, are limited practices, but they have 5 DNPs, some of which I think are important. And then with the Bills, I think largely comes down to what do you think this defense is now? Because before White and Jones and Milano all went down, this was probably a top 5, top 6 defense in the league. I don't think it's that at the moment, but they do have some guys coming back. And the defense wasn't really the problem against the Giants. It wasn't an amazing performance, but the Giants scored 9 points. Probably should have been at least 12 or 15. But the issue against the Giants was on offense. And you have this idea that, well, the Bills, they're just so banged up now that's why the game against the Giants was close. Well, they don't have any injuries on the offense. The offense is fully healthy, and the offense was all world for the first month. And I think they just had a weird game against the Jags in London where they were going up against a team that had already been there for a week, and they just couldn't convert third downs randomly. Outside of that, the underlying stuff against Jacksonville was fine. And then they had weird turnovers and a missed field goal, and Kyle Allen took a snap. And I think they traveled 16 hours in a week, and they go from the 9:30 a.m. Eastern kickoff against the Jags to the night game against the Giants. And there's just a lot of weirdness swirling around the team over the past couple of weeks. So I think that the offense will be fine and is going to be a top 5 offense going forward. It's just a matter of the defense. Is this like the 11th best defense, or is it more like the 18th best defense? And I think that is what we're going to figure out. In terms of downgrading the Patriots from their preseason rating, obviously they do get downgraded because they've been terrible, and Judon and Christian Gonzalez aren't coming back. I think the issue is that coming into the season, Mac Jones would be projected as like the 19th, 20th best quarterback in the NFL, and he's been bottom 5, I would say, to this point. I think the offensive line has been even worse than expected, and they just haven't got anything out of the receivers. Like, Juju Smith-Schuster was the number 1 receiver for a Super Bowl team last year. He wasn't great, but he was still, functional. And with the Super Bowl on the line, Patrick Mahomes kept on going to Juju Smith-Schuster, and now he's just completely unplayable due to health, due to going from Patrick Mahomes to Mac Jones. Who knows? So I think that the Pats, while I agree this is a massive adjustment from the preseason expectation, 6 points, considering all the Bills' injuries, I do think the Bills are going to be able to score against this defense, and I'm not sure that the Patriots in their current state are going to be able to keep up against the Bills team that has now spent 2 weeks in America and should be a little more refreshed. But yeah, I don't really know what to make of this game. Do you have any lean on the total of 40 flat?
Lean over, just because in the back of my mind, that it does spook me that the Bills are going to look like the Bills and score 31, in which case I'm like, get to 23. And that sounds like an ask, because the Patriots have scored 20 once this year, and it was week 1. And yes, you're right, they are. I will note though that with Trent Brown, that Trent Brown is kind of the injury that I've circled the most, because he still is a good tackle. And again, like, he does neutralize the one strength that I am concerned about on the Buffalo Bills defense, at least as currently rostered. And so if you can give Mac Jones a modicum of time in this one, I do think you have advantages over the secondary right now. Kaiir Elam is hurting, and he has been poor in replacement minutes for Trey White. So, this is a wildly low total. If you are scratching your head as to how it could be this low, there is wind expected. It's not beyond the threshold where you're saying autoplay the under. But people have, like, this has been bet down because people are expecting this to be a bad weather game. I think if the weather is not especially concerning come from Sunday. And if Trent Brown looks like he is good to go, again, he's been upgraded from DNP to limited participant. At that point, I think, you're looking for an over potentially in the hopes that Patriots can go score for score. And if this game lands in the 20s for each team, then this is going to clear 40 pretty easily.
Yep, I am on board with that. All right, before we get to Packers Broncos, weird game. NBA season tips off next week, but there's still time to get some last-minute cramming for your fantasy drafts. We've got you covered with the RotoWorld Basketball Draft Guide, which includes all the rankings, player outlooks, and projections you need to win your league this year. Go to NBCSports.com to get your draft guide now and use the code HOOPS23 to save 20% off and receive a $10 Fanatics gift card. And as the NBA season tips off next week, we'll talk a little NBA each day. There's a lot cooking on that front. Looking forward to talking about it. Looking forward to talking Packers -1 at Broncos, total 45 in that one. I think these are two of the stranger teams to handicap just because the Broncos have been so wildly departed from preseason expectations with the defense being so horrific, the worst pass defense in the league. And that's skewed a little bit by the opposition they've come up against, and, giving up 70 in a game will tend to skew your overall numbers. And then the Packers, who have Jordan Love, who the last time we saw him looked absolutely atrocious. The last couple times we've seen him, really. Now he is a favorite on the road. Do you agree that the Packers should be favored here, Drew?
I don't. I think this is Broncos as the side. And actually, really, the market entirely, the way it's moved from open, is telling you that not only are the Packers the right side, but the over is the right side, which means that there's somebody out there with confidence that this is going to be the game that the Packers offense breaks out. Okay, I get it. Every EPA per play chart that you find with the Broncos has them at the lower left corner on defense because they have had some appallingly poor performances so far this season. I will excuse them almost entirely because so much of that data is skewed by the Dolphins game in particular. And then beyond that, the games that they were missing Justin Simmons and the game that Justin Simmons was returning from injury, they pretty clear differences to me in terms of how successful the secondary in particular was. Now, they still have huge run stopping issues, but they are starting to get back to full strength on defense overall. And I think that's a huge buy low sign for this Broncos unit, because are they a bottom 10 defense? Maybe. Are they a bottom 5? I don't think so. Are they a bottom 3? As rostered, definitely not, in my opinion. And so I think they'll climb out of the basement here in terms of their metrics. And again, the preseason number on this was expected to be something like Broncos -3.5. Now, if you want to say that you've downgraded the Broncos offense relative to preseason expectation, I'm not stopping you. Like, that is completely fair. Like, these guys have had opportunities and opportunities and opportunities to prove that Sean Payton has the answers, and Russell Wilson is failing lots of key tests. And I think that there are plenty of reasons to be concerned again about Broncos being able to go score for score if the Packers offense shows up here. Now, my personal ratings for Jordan Love are very poor. Watching the film and seeing that he has wide receivers who are creating separation, he has all of the time in the world with an offensive line that is giving him time, and yet he is still wildly overthrowing, misreading as he is in the pocket, in clean pockets, in neutral game states. These are huge red flags that the game is not slowing down for him to this point. His best play in the game against the Raiders was his scramble for 25-30 yards. And maybe they use the bye week effectively to kind of really review the tape on Jordan Love and figure out, Matt LaFleur is a smart guy. He's a good coach, a good offensive mind. Maybe he uses that time to come into this game with an approach that really leans into his strengths. But I got to be honest with you, with the tape I've seen, I don't know what his strengths are. Like, the best plays, every one of them seems fluky. Right, all of his positive EPA per play stuff is bumped up by yards after the catch. Aaron Jones, catch and scramble against the Bears is kind of like the pinnacle example of that. So I'm out on this Packers team until they prove something more effectively. And I think the support for the Packers could be coming from the potential availability of Aaron Jones. He's obviously a guy that really matters for them, especially if the Broncos running defense remains unfixed. However, I would like to see a more competitive effort here from a Broncos team that I think should be at least a pick 'em, if not a small favorite, at least. And I may be stuck a little bit too much on my preseason rating for both of these teams. It's entirely possible, but worth noting that Jair Alexander had to miss some of practice today, and he is limited. And if he doesn't go, then you're going to have some potential mismatches against the secondary there. So tough for me to say that this is a high confidence look in any way, shape, or form. But I think the Broncos ought to be the side in this one, and against the market to a degree as they continue to take Packers money.
Yeah, I agree with you there. The one pushback would be that there is a chance that the Packers defense is relatively good. They are much healthier, I think, coming out of the bye. The Broncos also come off extended rest, though, having played on the Thursday. I think Love is one of the more confounding quarterbacks in the league. Like, he's 15th in EPA per dropback right now, which is better than Lamar Jackson, Trevor Lawrence, Joe Burrow, but his PFF grade right now is 25th out of 33 quarterbacks, and I skew more to PFF.
Yeah,
his QBR is 23rd in the league. He's completing less than 56% of his passes.
Yeah,
and just when I watch Jordan Love, he doesn't look very good. He screws up regulation throws. He throws baffling interceptions, and I think that a lot of his perception is skewed by the fact that he came back against Jameis Winston in Green Bay and won that game. That was largely with his legs at the end. And I think that his strength is that he's athletic and he can add value with his legs, and he has he has arm talent, but just doesn't seem to all be there. We'll see. Him coming out of the bye, two quarterbacks coming out of the bye, I think it'd be very interesting to see what Jordan Love looks like and what Kenny Pickett looks like.
Sure.
Because if they both look bad coming out of the bye, then I think it's almost time to just put a fork in them for this season.
Yeah.
They have not looked very good to date.
I think that was all very fair commentary. The only thing that really had me believing in Jordan Love was the fact that the Packers basically made this bet on him. So I kind of assumed that they had seen something in practice or in off-season reps that I didn't. And so far, it's not materializing on the field. The game just looks like it's going too fast for him so far. And that's something that you can grow into. Like, more reps, like, they made this bet. Like, he's got this year. They probably made this bet as a 2-year bet, right? Like, he's going to get this full year to prove it. And then, next season, I don't exactly know how you pivot off of this decision-making, considering you've already kind of, hit that midway point in terms of giving him a deal for next year. But to this point in the season, it's not working, and I don't know that that's going to turn around on a dime in on a bye week. And I just wanted to kind of bring this up and see if you have any thoughts. This was not part of my handicap. This is just sort of something I saw, and I was kind of like, I wonder if there's something there. And you tell me one way or the other. But teams that are coming off of their bye, since they changed the collective bargaining agreement, and you weren't able to use that first week as actual prep, you literally just have to send your guys home, right? Like, since they made that change in the bargaining agreement, teams that are coming off of the mini bye, who played Thursday and get a couple extra days rest, but are kind of the team is all together, are 11-7 against teams coming off of a full bye, right? So they're at a rest disadvantage by a few days, but it seems that at least for whatever reason, maybe the extra days of prep have helped the team on the mini bye, and or the buy itself is overpriced. The average misfit here in terms of spread is almost 2 points. So it's that there may be something there where it's just the mechanisms of how you are even able to use your time to try to develop players could fall flat. And I think we're going to learn that this week with both the guys you mentioned.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, that having 10 days of fully engaged practice and preparation would hold you in good stead against the team that's just completely taken 1 week off. I think that's a reasonable way to look at things. Just when you mentioned about Jordan Love and the fact that the Packers chose him as their guy, I think it's hugely valuable to kind of draw inferences from institutional decisions like that. I think this one is different to say what San Francisco did with Brock Purdy. because they had no draft capital investment in Purdy. He was literally the last pick in the draft, and Kyle Shanahan saw enough in him to give up on the number 3 pick in the draft, who was made by him and his management, the same management. So that to me was a massive sign that Purdy is going to be good, or at least that the Niners believe that he's going to be good. With Jordan Love, like, they spent a first-round pick on him. I think they were kind of sick of Aaron Rodgers anyway, who's heading towards 40. That wasn't really, that had run its course. And I'm not sure I would read as much into, the Packers chose Jordan Love as their guy, thus he is good. Or at least I don't think it's as strong of an indicator as what the Niners did with Purdy, for instance.
Okay. So they didn't exercise Love's 5th-year option. That's important. Instead, they kind of negotiated the little halfway deal, right? Yeah. And at the time, it was like, well, that's prudent because you don't have any data on the guy, right? But at the same time, like, if you had some kind of inkling that this wasn't the guy, but you still wanted to move off, Aaron Rodgers, then you just roll the dice and you make him play out his 4th year, and then you franchise him if he does well. So I was I did read some signal into it, but your point is absolutely fair. Like, the signal you should take away from the Niners electing to go in the direction of Brock Purdy is much stronger signal.
Yeah, indeed. All right, before we get to Dolphins-Eagles and our handicap of it, a reminder that is the game this Sunday night, Drew, between two of the NFL's most explosive offenses. So they meet in Philadelphia when the high-flying Dolphins take on the Eagles. Get ready for what could be a shootout at 7 p.m. Eastern, only on NBC and Peacock. Line started to trend a little bit towards the Dolphins a couple days ago. Now it's back to Eagles -2.5, likely off of a pretty encouraging practice injury report for the Eagles. The total is 51.5. What do you make of this one?
Yeah, great game. Finally.
Better than Bills-Giants, certainly.
Yeah, although, can you ask for a more entertaining ending?
Right. Great 15.5.
Yeah.
Great game, yeah.
As good as you could ask for. Came down to the last play, Jay.
Why don't teams, if in that situation with an untimed down at the 1, you should just commit defensive pass interference every single play? Like,
obviously. Just wait, make them just say, fine, we give up. No, you're no flag this time.
You have to call a running play in that situation, don't you? Like, I don't understand that. Anyway.
We agree. Okay. So many different ways to attack this one. I think my favorite, or at least my 2 favorite pillars here to start a handicap are, number 1, this is a big step up in competition for the Dolphins, and a big step up in just in general setting and, importance of a game, right? They've been playing largely, other than the Bills game, which was, a road game, but, they didn't have a ton to prove. They were being talked about as the best team in the NFL. Like, that was a little bit of a lower stakes game than it probably ought to have been for them. And they've played lots of, home games, good weather games, 80 degrees, a couple of games that were just outrageously positive game states, and then a couple of games that have they've had to come back against bad teams. Right, this is an entirely different beast. You're going into the Link and prime time on a Sunday night, and you have potential for wind, definitely some colder weather than they have been playing in, and this is now like the lights are on, and you are being tested against last year's runner-up NFC champion. Like, this is a big step up in terms of competition as far as I see it. And then to make matters more interesting, you're going into this game with against a team that has a pretty discernible advantage, in my opinion, with their D line against your offensive line, right? So the question about the Dolphins and how they approach this game is, do we adjust away from what has worked for us offensively in a way that kind of tries to hide maybe our inefficiencies with, or at least our vulnerabilities in the trenches? I think basically every team that plays the Eagles all season long is going to have to ask themselves these questions, because I don't think there's a single team in the NFL that has an advantage in the trenches on both sides of the balls over the Eagles. The Eagles are just, that's how they're built. That's where their strength is. You just have to adapt to it in your game plan for them. So I don't exactly see the Dolphins being able to come in with a totally brand new identity that is as effective as we have seen offensively, considering the mismatch in the trenches for their offensive line against the Eagles D line. That said, the Eagles, on the other hand, can play with a positive game state, I think, very effectively in this contest, because their rushing attack should be able to absolutely embarrass this Dolphins run defense, which, number one, Fangio has plays with a lighter boxes, more defensive backs on the field, more shell coverages, trying to take away the explosive plays. And that's important against this Eagles team that has game-breaking wide receivers. But it is, to me at least, a good sign that the Eagles are going to be able to kind of matriculate at will. And that, I think, sets up a pretty fragile game state here for the Dolphins, where if they find themselves at a 1 or even 2 score disadvantage at any point in this game, I think it's over. And the fact that there is sort of a tale for Eagles to be able to kind of generate and nurse a lead and put this game away comfortably, that completely spooks me away from any kind of optimism that the Dolphins are a good bet at the current price of 2.5. Now, if the Dolphins can play from ahead, do they have enough strength in their defensive line and enough talent in their secondary to keep the Eagles from coming back? It's possible. We have not seen amazing play out of Jalen Hurts this season. It's been a step backwards, if we're being completely honest. And I think there is starting to become a little bit of a book on what you do to stop Jalen Hurts. If you can get him off of his space, if you can get him off of the spot he wants to operate from and throw the football from, he's not as accurate. He's not as effective. He throws the ball out of bounds at a pretty absurd clip, right? And so that's kind of, I think, a known, because, Vic Fangio, obviously assistant for the Eagles last year, was kind of responsible for cooking up week in, week out. If I had those defensive personnel, this is how I would construct a game plan to stop you. So he's spent 20 weeks thinking exactly how he would go about stopping Jalen Hurts and the Eagles. And I think, there's going to be a little bit of a premium and a little bit of an importance on his D-line getting, whatever crack in the wall they can get in order to move Hurts off of his spot, force him out of the pocket, put him on the run, not on the run in terms of design runs where he's, is still relatively effective, but put him on the run where he's bootlegging and things like that, where he just ultimately chooses to throw it out of bounds or forces a pick if it's in the red zone. So there are warning signs certainly with the Eagles in this game. But I think fundamentally the fact that half of the game states that I can conceive of in my head do point to either the Eagles having an opportunity to come back or being able to play with a lead and put away a game pretty comfortably. All that kind of points me in the direction of the Eagles here. I think there's a pretty clear correlation where Eagles win and cover, and this stays well under 51.5 because the game just gets shorter. And then I think the opposite is true, where if the Dolphins are scoring first, if the Dolphins are playing from ahead, this thing could absolutely fly over 51.5. So it's going to be a really fun game either way. I'm excited to see how it plays out. And I think ultimately I'm curious, specifically your thoughts here, is this as high a leverage game for Dolphins futures as it feels like?
I think so, because if the Dolphins win this game, then all of a sudden Tua is your MVP favorite, potentially by a little bit of margin. Mike McDaniel's the clear coach of the year favorite. Tyreek Hill, I don't think it matters so much for his offensive player of the year candidacy. That'll depend more on his individual stats. But all of a sudden they become very clear favorites for their division, more so than they are now. To me, this game is more interesting in a way from the Philadelphia side, because I feel like the Dolphins, they're going to score in this game. I don't think that you can really stop this Miami offense. You can maybe mitigate the damage to some degree, but Miami should be able to score here. Miami's weakness and what really, I think, prevents them from being, at the level of a full-strength San Francisco or at the level of a full-strength, before all the injuries, Buffalo, is that their cornerbacks have just been terrible. And Jalen Ramsey is coming back, and we'll see what capacity he has. But the corners to this point have not been good at all. Xavier Howard is not the guy that he was 2 years ago. Eli Apple is not. He is the guy that he was 2 years ago. He's still not very good. He's not been very good for a long time, maybe ever. And so to me, this game is all about Jalen Hurts, who was atrocious against New York with the decisions that he made to lose that game a week ago. And if Jalen Hurts is the guy that he was in the Super Bowl and for most of the last season, then the Eagles should win this game at home with the advantages they have at the line and with their wide receivers going up against Miami's corners. If Hurts is the guy that he's been pretty much for all this year, Hurts has thrown 7 picks already, had 6 all of last season. a big red flag. I'm not sure about if that's adjusting to the new offense of Shane Steichen not being there, but I mean, it's largely the same offense. He's just not seeming to play as well. I'm not sure if he's still dealing with the shoulder or whatever, but to me, this game is about Jalen Hurts because he's the guy who, takes them from being a team that's a 2 or a 3 seed and loses in the NFC title game to a team that can win the Super Bowl. So that's what I'm looking for here. I don't really know what to expect out of him. I'm not surprised that the line is where it is just because the Eagles practice report was so positive. Looks like Lane Johnson will go. Devontae Smith had a hiccup. It looks like he will go as well. But I'm ready for anything in this game. You tell me the Eagles win this in the same manner that the Bills blew out the Dolphins, not surprised. Tell me the Dolphins just completely blow them off the park, not that surprised either based on the fragility that the Eagles have shown. So, I would lean Eagles by a little bit, but not with a great deal of confidence. But I believe you do have a great deal of confidence, Drew. This is your best bet.
Yeah. And you kind of led me right into this. Jalen Hurts, when the lights are bright, particularly at home, he's been superb.
Yes.
So if that's what it comes down to, that we need good Jalen Hurts to show up, I've got enough signal to say that is likely to happen. And so, I think, the game state that I'm going to be the most comfortable with, obviously, as a person who's laying 2.5, is if they could get out to a lead, if they could have that classic sort of second quarter kind of, dominant 15 minutes where they score a couple touchdowns and come up with a couple key stops. I think this game could feel real short. And I think it could feel real like, wow, the Dolphins were not ready for that environment. The Dolphins were not ready for that atmosphere. Maybe the questions start to swirl about, a second loss for the Dolphins against an elite team this year. And you're going to hear the same questions when they play the Chiefs, when they play every other good team that is left on their schedule. It's going to come up again and again and again. Like, are they just a team that can beat up on the chumps, or are they a team that can go toe to toe with the elite? And this is a fun, huge, high leverage game. And I think the experience and the home field advantage is being a little bit underpriced for the Eagles. So happy to lay the 2.5.
Yeah. I'll say with the Dolphins, basically since the second half of last season, only including games that Tua played, they've had 4 big tests and they've lost all of them. At San Francisco, at Chargers, at Buffalo, 3 weeks in a row last year. They lose all of those games. To be fair, they held themselves well in that Buffalo game in the snow, but they lost the game. And then they had one test this year, one big test, and they lost 48-20 to Buffalo. So there is a chance that this team I'm really interested to see just what they look like with Jalen Ramsey. If it's, Jalen Ramsey and he's fully healthy after the torn meniscus, because if he might just transform that defense with the talent that they already have at D-line with how their safeties are playing. But he's not going to be playing Sunday night. So I agree that it seems to be skewing Philadelphia. All right, before we get to my best bet, a reminder, Saturday, October 21st at 11 a.m. Eastern, Vaughn Dalzell, Brad Thomas, and Eric Froton are answering your college football betting questions for Week 8, including a huge Big Ten matchup between number 3, Ohio State, and 7th-ranked Penn State at the Horseshoe, as well as another chapter in the storied rivalry of Michigan v. Michigan State. There'll be some bad blood in that one, which kicks off at 7:30 p.m. Eastern on NBC and Peacock.
Yeah, some familiarity between those two teams. You wonder if Michigan knows what Michigan State's going to want to be doing out there. They've got an inside look at some of their calls.
Maybe that's why they're 24-point favorites over the mighty Spartans. All right, I'm going with another favorite. Not quite 24 points, but I'm taking the Chiefs minus 5.5 as my best bet home to the Chargers. I don't understand why this line isn't 6.5, pushing towards 7. The Chargers coming off a short week against the Chiefs, well rested, having played on the Thursday. And what I come back to in this game is that the Chargers' pass defense has been the 4th worst in the NFL to date. Dak Prescott had his best game in a long time against them on Monday night. And I just think of the way that Dallas moved the ball with ease through the air. That does not bode well for the Chargers on a short week coming up against Patrick Mahomes in Arrowhead, now with the missing piece, Mecole Hardman, back in the picture. So I say that facetiously, but I do think Mecole Hardman will help them. Just less Sky Moore, more Mecole Hardman should be a benefit. And then quietly, the Chiefs on the other side, in a game where the Chargers will almost certainly need to be throwing a good chunk, Chiefs have the third best pass defense in the league this year, only behind the Browns and the 49ers. They're getting very strong corner play. Chris Jones is playing at a defensive player of the year level and is kind of a stealth candidate for that award. But I think that Herbert as well, with the finger that he seems to be favoring, and just that the pass offense seems to be so much Justin Herbert, put your cape on, very dependent on Keenan Allen. They just didn't seem to have a lot of variety in the offense against Dallas. And now they go up against a really strong pass defense again. In a game where if the Chiefs win, like that's bye-bye AFC West. Chargers aren't coming back from that deficit in that division if Mahomes stays healthy. So I think this line should be a little bit bigger. And I'm taking the Chiefs -5.5. What do you think?
Yep, love it. I'm with you. My fair here is 7. Terrible spot with the Chiefs getting extra rest and the Chargers coming off a Monday Night Football game and having to travel. This doesn't ever play out well for the road team in this spot. And ultimately, I think the matchup advantages all check Chiefs for me. The reason I struggle to find a reason that the market has been a little bit two-way here. Sure, you've seen it, but there's definitely been clearer push-pull at around 5.5, which that's the number we want to fight over. I don't know, but this has been two-way action so far in the week, and I'm assuming that people are kind of looking at the history of in division between these two teams in the Herbert Mahomes era. These games are always relatively closely contested, and maybe people are just assuming that will continue. I personally think that the Chargers are being overrated by market in terms of their offense. If you look at any kind of public, market-based rating right now, they're telling you that the Chargers are something like a top 10 offense. In the absence of their center, Chris Lindsley, in the absence of Mike Williams, this is not a top 10 offense right now. And they're going up against their toughest test, in my opinion, in terms of coverage with this Chiefs defense right now. And I think this could get away from them pretty quickly.
Yep, we're on the same page. And a reminder that people can go back through past shows in our podcast feed and on YouTube for handicaps of all the other NFL games this week. But for now, we are done. Don't forget to check out NBCSports.com for more information to help you with your wagers. Thanks for those watching on the NBC Sports channel. As always, please rate and subscribe if you're listening to us in podcast form. And a reminder to find all your favorite NBC Sports shows on Amazon Music. Just head to amazon.com/NBC Sports. From Jay Croucher and Drew Dinsick. Good luck this weekend, and we'll speak to you next week. Cheers.